Welcome to Discovery Indie Film. I'm your host, Jeff Howard, and I'm honored to have Jean Villepique with me. Hey, Jean.
Hey, Jeff. How are you?
Good. All right, so Jean and I are talking for the first time since November 2019 when she brought her short film, IV-effing, to the Sherman Oaks Film Festival. And I guess the first thing I should mention is it won the grand jury prize for Best Comedy, Best Short Film Comedy. Your supporting actress in the film actually got the award for Best Supporting Actress. Funny thing is, I feel like apologizing to you because we've enhanced the spread of our awards. Because I think you would have won a writing award, but we didn't have a writing award back then for comedy short and stuff. So you should have
sexiest. I'm surprised we didn't get sexiest, but that's okay. That's okay. It's just
sexiest,
sexy short.
That's so funny because in the Sherman Oaks Film Festival we just had in November, there was this super sexy little comedy about a couple and they don't know each other is bisexual and they're and anyway. And I told the filmmaker, I'm like, you make me want to start a sexiest film category.
Oh, I think I had seen that on some social media for the festival, and I thought there actually was a sexiest.
Yeah, I'm just joking. Yeah, we called it Sexy AF, I think. Yeah, you saw it. That's so cool. All right, well, so congrats.
Thank you so much.
You know what? I'm going to tell you the truth. I chickened out at the theater in 2019. I was going to tell you that I was so delighted when I saw IV-effing, watching it as a jury member of when we were selecting films for the festival, because I know of you from your TV work. I'm actually one of those people. I am a Jean Villepique fan. I had noticed you, in various, if people look up your IMDb, you're in all the good shows.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, Better Call. I look at the list and it's like The Office and Better Call Saul and this and that. And then my wife and I were big AP Bio fans.
Oh.
And literally said things to each other watching it like, they should take those three teachers and just base a show around them.
I agree. Thank you.
and then, a film shows up in the Sherman Oaks Film Festival, submissions. And it's you, and you wrote it, and it's hilarious, and you're hilarious in it, and it's smart and funny and touching. And I showed my wife the film, and she's like, "Well, that's so cool." I'm like, "Yeah, I know the jury's going to love it. I don't even have to put my finger on the scale." So it was actually kind of exciting for me that this accomplished actress, who I think is so cool, and I think comedic acting is probably harder than dramatic acting. I've always been one of those people who's comedic acting, I think, gets underrated throughout the industry. So anyway, that's what I didn't. And you know what? I think I told one of your producers or one of your friends at the theater, I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'm a fan of hers from AP Bio." She goes, "Oh, you should tell her that. It'd be great." And then we were face to face and I just went, "Welcome."
Oh, well, thank you. And nobody ever says that, so it's not like that's happening all the time or ever annoying. I think it's just so kind of you to say, and thank you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I know. I was born and raised in LA, so I'm kind of retarded, kind of goofy about talking to people, because I worked at Big Five in Studio City in high school.
Okay.
Then when Tom Hanks was on Bosom Buddies, I sold him Nikes and I said nothing. You're told you're not allowed to say anything.
True.
Oh yeah, it was the 80s. It was Tony Danza and Tom Hanks and Charles Grodin. The Studio City Big Five was So I always thought you're never supposed to tell,
yes,
industry professional. You're supposed to treat everyone like they're a regular human being.
I guess in real life too, it can be intrusive for many people. I don't have this experience because my career, I'm small potatoes and don't get recognized or this or that. But I know for people I remember when we were kids, we were getting fast food somewhere in upstate New York, and we saw Pete Rose, and my dad was like, "That's Pete Rose," and he lost it, and he went up to him, and he was so pissed off. He was just trying to buy a hamburger, and I can see how that would just be in the world, but especially in the festival setting. I was so grateful to be there. We're in the same world, and not that people in the supermarket are in my world. I go to the supermarket too, but I can understand how some people would want their privacy either way.
But you're right. At the festival, I should have said, by the way, I think I think there should be a TV series just based around your character and the other two teachers.
Wow.
Like,
I would get a microphone put up to your mouth and be like,
right?
I agree.
Because I'm like, not that, and Glenn, the creators of the show and the lead of the show, they're great too. But for some reason, I just thought the chemistry. But anyway, so you mentioned upstate New York. I don't know if you've been able to listen to these podcasts, but I always just start off asking how you got into filmmaking and acting, and where you grew up and what your inspirations were.
Well, I grew up in New Jersey in a small town, and we had one movie theater. I was just thinking about that this morning, mentally preparing to talk, because I don't consider myself really a filmmaker. I've been a stage performer a lot of my life and worked on a lot of TV shows, but not... So that sort of blows my mind. But anyway, the movie theater, there was one movie theater in town. And I remember the summer Karate Kid was in the theater, and it was in the theater all summer. Like, one movie would come and it would be there, and we would watch it multiple times because it was like one of the two things to do. So I didn't have, and then I went to college at Northwestern to study theater, I was very lucky to go there, and also put in this mix of people who grew up in Manhattan or in LA or had seen Fellini films. And I was just really playing catch up culturally with people. I don't even think there was a museum we went to. Like, there was like the Mars, I remember going to some weird zoo, and there was like an alligator and sort of a bathtub. We had a small town growing up situation, but I definitely always loved comedy and watching Saturday Night Live. We got like a VCR machine right around the time Eddie Murphy was on Saturday Night Live, and I remember learning how to program it and taping it and watching episodes. Julie Louis-Dreyfus was on there too, and watching them over and over during the day. So I loved comedy, and then I ended up doing improv at Northwestern. And that was, I found that by accident my freshman year. There was a show called The Meow Show. And I had auditioned for that, as I did for everything, just kind of like just shots on goal, I guess, just trying everything. That's the last sports reference you'll hear, by the way. I don't know anything about sports. But I went downtown to Second City with friends who were also from the Chicago area, who were like, this is a job and this is a thing. And I had never heard of the Second City. And the show I saw had Steve Carell and Stephen Colbert in the cast. It blew my mind that this was a kind of theater. Like, I had been to Broadway once or twice to see like Peter Pan and Phantom of the Opera. So I just wanted to be this sort of actress, like with costumes and I don't know. And then I realized that I loved that there was a possible career in comedy. And then I ended up working at the Second City. And so this is a long answer. Do you want to? No, honestly, that was actually technically a short answer for this podcast. Because sometimes I make people like talk about, when they first got a camera and stuff and grammar school, middle school, high school. But the fact that you ended up at Northwestern is really cool. I'll ask you when we're not recording if you know the actors I know who went there. Oh, yeah.
But it's a really good program.
Yeah, the theater program.
Yeah, Northwestern is like that means you're really smart, and like it's not an easy theater program to get into.
Well, I had wanted to go to a conservatory, and I wanted to go to NYU. I just wanted to live in New York. That was it. Like, I just had watched the show Fame growing up, and I wanted to live this artist life, or maybe go to Carnegie Mellon or something. And my parents wanted me to get a liberal arts degree, not just not go to a conservatory, which I still, oh, well, it is what it is. I wish I had gone to a conservatory, but I might have gone loony. I don't know.
It's better than saying you have to get an accounting degree and you can do acting on the side.
I got a minor in linguistics, or not exactly minor, almost enough credits for a minor in linguistics. I was like, so I need to round myself out. I'll study linguistics. And then I was like, what? I'm not going to go into speech therapy, I don't think. Anyhow, yeah. The program was amazing. And to be with other people who had such focus and drive and passion, and to find these improvisers. Friends of mine had already taken classes at Second City in high school. So when we were directing and writing our own sketches in this Meow Show, I got a lot of Second City education and Improv Olympic at the time. It was called later to be IO, now I don't know if it exists anymore. Anyhow, my friends had all these exercises and books and all this stuff. So we had this incredibly intense experience where I think other theater majors were like, do you guys want to do plays? Like there's a whole, this whole other world. But it was my passion. Yeah. So after college, I mean, the night we graduated, we had a show at Improv Olympic. We had created and developed a show called Sue Your Ex, where someone would come up and who had been wronged, and they would say like, oh, my girlfriend dumped me. And one of us would play his lawyer and one of us would play the girlfriend. And we had figured out how to improvise this whole courtroom scene. And the rest of my friends were like, we're having a party. We are graduating. And we're like, we're doing a show downtown. And now that I look back on it, there are some things I missed out on because we were so focused, but I'm really grateful for that ensemble of people in my life.
For sure. I would bet there's a really good argument that there's more than enough time for parties. But I mean, it's so cool that Northwestern brought you to Chicago, where obviously Second City is almost the premier place for comedy and improv. I mean, obviously New York and LA have their troops and they're this, but like Second City really has such an amazing track record for nurturing talent.
Yeah, and I think their program is so intense, and they really teach acting with improvisation. So other improv comedy places just teach you how to improvise in a way that is really, really funny, or really explores long form, or is really collaborative with a group. But Second City teaches you great acting as well, which to me means great listening. So you have more patience, and there's more art to the shows. And a lot of the directors, Mick Napier is a genius who runs the Annoyance Theater, and I was really lucky to work with him on my last review there. And he would take big risks and make the shows beautiful or upsetting and then funny. Not that they were upsetting first and funny second, but they also had these elements that were more artistic than just doing like wah-wah kind of comedy stuff. So that was... And we were writing shows when George Bush was elected the second time. I remember we were so upset, and like, we have this voice, and we thought it was the worst thing that would ever happen in politics. We're like, this is the low point for our country. Anyway, it was an incredible job to have. And also the training, you develop shows when you're writing there. There's when you're in previews, you try new sketches every night. So you pitch ideas and you kind of script them a little bit, and then you try them out, and the audience will tell you whether it's funny or not. So you get used to taking really big swings, and then also really eating it when it doesn't work, and then knowing that tomorrow's another show. It's not like, I failed, I am terrible. It's just like, that didn't work, why not? Or some people who I wish, like, the creator of AP Bio, Mike O'Brien, was there after he was like the generation after me there. And he is such a confident and courageous comedian who has a great voice, or improviser. He would probably try things on purpose. Like, no one's going to like this. Then what happens? Or just take this opportunity that we had and really stretch it out, which I was too much like trying to get an A to do that at the time. Like, I just want to write a neat sketch that's funny and get it in the show, instead of like, we have this great space. Anyway, that gave me a great, a super training in resilience. And Susan Messing, who's an alumna from there, used to call it the PhD in comedy, working at Second City on the main stage. You do shows every night. You improvise every night. And you can, after that, pretty much improvise anywhere with anyone. You've done it when you're sick, when you hate the people you work with, when you're thrilled, when you're sad, or someone died in your family. You still, you have these amazing chops. So and also writing skills too. So that's how I felt comfortable writing this short.
I was going to say, obviously, you get a ton of writing experience with it, and unlike a lot of screenwriters who might write a handful or a bunch of scripts at home and maybe have some people look at it, but you were seeing how audiences reacted to your writing almost instantly, which is pretty great. I was going to ask, did Second City and Northwestern overlap, or did you like graduate and then start?
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Excuse me. Oh no, thank goodness.
I'll talk while you have some water, but and feel free to let the coughs out. It's no worry. This is, there's no sponsors. We don't have to worry about people judging our podcast
over here. No, I'm just not. I graduated and then I was doing shows at Improv Olympic at IO, and I thought I would get hired at Second City in a minute, and I did not. I also didn't take their training center. I was pretty broke. I was waitressing, and I was like, I already got those skills from my college friends. I don't need to take classes at that theater. I'm great. And they were very invested in having people come through learning how to write, taking the classes there, of course. And so I kept doing shows at IO. I auditioned for the touring company at the Second City, and you kind of work your way up. And then it took me several years until that actually happened.
Right.
And then I got hired for the touring company. Or maybe it was, they had a show in, I got hired for the touring company, and then I thought I was going to get promoted to a stage and didn't. I kept thinking I was ready, and it was their time to hire me. And then they had a show in, they were starting a new theater in the Flamingo Hotel in Las Vegas, and I got hired to do that. And that was the first time I got to work with Mick Napier. And that was just a wild time because it's just not built for social satire, as you can imagine. And that made me enjoy the desert, which also helped me eventually move out here. And then I eventually got promoted to both the stages. But
yeah, and that Second City, I was wondering if you're going to say Vegas, because that Second City Vegas troupe, I've heard of a lot of people went through
and back it all, and it's amazing. Yeah. We were really lucky.
Fully legit.
Yeah. If they only knew at the time.
At the time, did you feel like, why am I not in Chicago?
Well, I was like, why am I not on the main stage? But there's in the backstage at Second City on the walls, everyone would write, if something really funny happened in the set, someone would write a quote, or if someone had an inspirational thing to say. And Stephanie Weir, who from Mad TV and many amazing jobs, and she's created shows, and she had written "Bloom Where You Are Planted," and that is something that has always stuck with me too. Like, you don't think you belong here? Well, here you are in Las Vegas for 6 months. Enjoy it, bloom, do what you can. And the most successful and interesting people that I got to work with were curious. Like, here we are touring. We're in Arkansas. What is the best mom and pop place to go to, or what's going on here? Instead of we're not, we're not in New York, or we're not, here or there. So that was that helped shape me as well.
Very cool. And then, were you writing much, or was all your creativity aimed at the stage, or were you writing some stuff in your spare time?
I was trying to write solo shows a couple of times. And then I did, after I left Second City, I wrote a show. My friend Tammy Sager, who is a brilliant writer and also worked at the Second City, she was in LA and I was living in New York at the time. And we did writing exercises every day. And then I put up a solo show called Who Cares, about getting divorced. And I had gotten married on September 11th, in 1998 on September 11th. So my anniversary was that horrible day. And then we had gone to New Orleans for our honeymoon, and then Katrina had just happened. So it just seemed like everything was sort of tainted. And so I tried to write this show about that. And she wrote a solo show, and we performed them at the UCB in LA where she was living. So that helped bring me out here, and then encouraged me. I wrote a couple other solo shows, and so it was something I always did. And then after I met my husband here, and we had been trying to have a baby, and I had several miscarriages, and then we went through IVF, and it failed 3 times, and it just started to have all of this bad news. And then my father got sick. The 3rd round of IVF, I was in the middle of it, and my father got diagnosed with bile duct cancer, and I had to go home, and he died in 10 days. So it was just this horrible slide of grief and bad news. And trauma. And I started to write a blog about it at the time called Griefing, because I really couldn't tell people all of this. I just felt like I had so much bad news, but I needed to process it and put it somewhere. So I started to write this blog, and one of the entries on this blog was called IV-effing. Everything was like a gerund. It was like crying, Decembering, this and that-ing. And then IV-effing worked great because it sort of it gave a wink toward the F-bomb.
Yeah, for sure.
That goes along when that doesn't work out. So that's how I got to write about the subject of this film.
And I can't help but assume, I mean, as a entertainer and comedic improviser and comic actor, when things are really shitty, when you are in grief, when you are in pain, like you probably have the natural instinct to not share the bad, but just try to make other people happy. Maybe like do you trap in like I'm the sad clown, like I'll be in a horrible mood and then friends come over and I totally I just act like everything's fine. And then they leave and I'm sad again. Like I don't let that out in the world.
Yeah. I let it out with my friends, but I was doing improv shows pretty regularly. Quartet was one I did with friends from Chicago, and at the UCB I did a show called Soundtrack. So Thursdays and Friday nights I was improvising regularly, and with a lot of guys actually. There wasn't a lot of space for me to be like, hey, I'm 8 weeks pregnant on my third miscarriage. Don't know how it's going. Like it was just so awful. So there was definitely, I just had retreated a lot and was trying to be funny on stage. But I also think I was kind of rolling in 2 minutes before the show. What's up, everybody? And then like I could definitely perform and deliver comic improv at the time or whatever, but I did not want to hang out with anyone after or talk very much, because it's so hard to cope with that much grief. And especially in my experience in Los Angeles, people don't want to talk about bad news too much. In Chicago, everyone's ready to hear it a lot. New York, maybe some, but LA people are sorry, but they just don't want to like sit in a pub for 6 hours and smoke cigarettes and dwell on it.
That's true. You have to do it at home. You have to do it with intimate friends.
Yeah.
But so the blog post, did the blog post focus on the humor of it too?
Yes. My husband he hosts The Moth. His name's Brian Finkelstein, and he is a brilliant storyteller and solo show writer and performer. And I would bounce them off of him, and he was like, this is a little bit, sometimes he would be like, you're still going through this part. You can't write about it until it's happened, but a lot of it, he would help shine a light on what was funny about it and had my voice instead of just like, oh, this. He's like, I don't know if that, might be out there forever. Or, he kept encouraging me to use my voice in a comic way about it, which is what people really responded to, because a lot of grief writing is like a whisper in the wind, how to cope with alcoholism, or, like there's just so much that's extra heavy when you're already feeling heavy. And it was helpful. And what my friends had responded to at the time was that I could pick out absurd moments. Like when we had done the IVF, the first time we did it, there's this thing called egg harvesting. So they kind of pump your body up, and instead of ovulating once, they pull out as many eggs as they can. And at this point, I think I got like 6, but the woman next to me got like 18. And there's a little curtain, and I heard the doctor be like, 18, that's great. And then he's like, 6, very good, very good. And I was like, oh, I can hear you. I can, Anyway, you're supposed to get like, or you're not supposed to, but we had gotten genetic testing on the embryos. I think 5 embryos had survived. Or by the end of the week, there were only 2. And we had genetic testing so that we didn't get one implanted that was already going to have an extra hard time surviving. And they never got back to us with the results. So we go in for this like implantation day, and I've been taking all these drugs and put the booties on. And I'm like, I don't know when I tell them if we're going to implant 1 or 2, because this was a big conversation we had like, should we try and have twins or blah, blah, blah. And I like get down on the table, and they're like, actually, you need to have a consultation with the doctor. And I was like, oh, okay. And then we go into this other room that I had never seen before. And he's got like 6 shopping bags. Like he went down Rodeo Drive, like the shiniest, most like expensive shopping bags full of, and I was just like, oh, this guy's so rich. Okay. Anyway. And he was like, we forgot to tell you that none of them are viable. I'm so sorry. And we were like, what? And he was like, yeah, we should not have put you in that room. And none of them. And I just was like, ah! Like I had never had such fast. I think I was kind of screaming, and I was like, I don't know how to exit this building because I'm not walking through a lobby of women like, like it was so awful. And they like had this weird, like bad newsroom. And it was, anyway, so moments like that were specific and absurd and helped just tell the story in a way that people could relate to and connect in a more lighthearted way, I think.
For sure. And I can't help but think, so with the festival, we, of course, we have a lot of films and a lot of short films come through. And what kind of, you just made me realize with the story of what led up to it is obviously in IV-effing, we know that your character, like you don't start with IVF. Right. So there's like a lot has happened previous to that moment that I think at least adults know about. I mean, obviously, I don't know if teenagers and other people, they would still find humor in what you're doing in the film. But we've had a lot of films, miscarriage is an under-discussed, understood, women are told, don't tell anyone you're pregnant for 12 weeks and all this pressure. And then if you do miscarry, you're just supposed, oh, well, I didn't tell anyone, so now I don't have to tell anyone about the miscarriage. And it's like a really high pressure, difficult, lonely, isolating thing. And we've had a lot of films about the pain of that. We've had an amazing film about a couple that happened to have tickets for a Star Wars convention and they miscarried that morning and they went anyway. Oh. and they go through all their emotions there. It was actually wonderful. But like so I really love that especially women writers are trying to get this topic out, because I think it's an under discussed and underrepresented, I think, in our storytelling.
And it's pretty insane to have something so huge happen and just like kind of skate through life, just pretend nothing's happening. Like how much are you supposed to bear? And for men too. I mean, like my husband was like, I don't know how to talk about this. Where's a space for me to talk about this as well? Like men are not talking to each other about it. And I'm glad there is more opportunity to hear about it because it's so common. It's crazy.
I know. I feel like I'm virtue signaling, but like, I mean, whatever. I'm in my 50s, so I don't know the numbers, but I know every time a friend has dealt with miscarriage, it's been like, we all know people who have, and it's actually, it should be a community, but instead it's almost silent. Like, oh, I know someone you can talk to or whatever. It's my wife just had breast cancer last month, and that's a women's topic that gets a lot of push behind. Did I say last month? Last year. But okay, yeah. So now everything's fine. She's good. She's really good. that was a bad mistake, but it's like it affects 1 in 8 women, but I bet miscarriage could even be higher.
I think it's 1/4 of pregnancies end in miscarriage. So, or half. It's a huge statistic.
It's huge, and it's and yet people feel like they have to be quiet about it.
Yeah, and that leads to a shame on top of it. And I remember reading something. My therapist at the time was like, well, there are support groups. And I looked one up and it had existed years ago and was disbanded. And I was like, maybe I'll start that up. And I was like, I don't fucking feel like it. I'm too sad. I'm not going to start something like that right now. And also the next one's going to work. I just really wanted to sort of bounce back. I lost my train of thought. I had read something about, maybe it was in Japanese culture in the times. It was like when someone had a miscarriage, they planted a tree or they planted something. And I was like, oh, just that idea of giving yourself space and permission. Like you can't have a funeral, but like, okay, this happened and this is a loss and we're grieving it, instead of like, this didn't happen. And that was such a relief to me to hear that other people were processing that way. And I think we did start to buy flowers, or we did start to buy plants then.
Yeah. It's fascinating to me because I'm thinking about your character in that room waiting for the doctor. And I think the language in our culture is having trouble getting pregnant.
Yeah.
Like people might think that your character's in that room because she's having trouble. It's like having trouble doesn't mean you're having sex 10 times a day and not getting pregnant. Like I can. Yeah. But odds are it's more about, getting to term. And it's, anyway, it's interesting. I appreciate that your film sort of has that underneath in a way.
There's like someone I spoke to about miscarriage, multiple miscarriages, talked about being a hope junkie, or maybe I had said it. It's like you just keep thinking the next one is going to happen, or IVF, and that's how they really get you in. And it's so much money, and it's such a business to the people who are working there, and the people who are paying the money are so fragile and have already, as you said, are just coming to the table with already some grief or worry, or is it him, or is it me, or is it my age, or with something that's so important to them. And what the content of the short is something that really did happen. And because, as you said earlier, I have this comic need to sort of take care of other people and make things okay. The nurse that I was working with said that she said she lost her pet. And I was like, oh, okay. And I was like blasted out on hormones and like, my body feels weird. Is this one going to work? And I was like, are you okay? Are you okay? And then she was like, I didn't say pet. I said aunt. And I was like, what's happening? Why am I having this conversation with somebody? It was so absurd, but it was this pinnacle of like awkward, misfired, like emotions misplaced and not knowing how to behave in this situation.
Yeah. Yeah. And you captured those moments hilariously in the film because your co-star Anjali was like, she hit you so hard.
And Anjali was in the Meow Show at Northwestern. I can't believe I didn't talk about that right at the beginning. I knew her at Northwestern, and
that's right. I think you two discussed that at your Q&A.
I hadn't seen her since, and our casting director, her name was on the list, and I was like, "Oh, what? Of course, we have this common understanding about improv, and she's so talented, and was able to deliver that performance multiple times, multiple takes and angles, and cry." And I was just like, wow, she is an incredible actress. She's really great.
It was. And I guess I'll ask, did you script everything out, or was there a little bit of improv while you shot?
It was all scripted.
All scripted, even like using the probe as a microphone and all that. That visual comedy, did you?
Our director, Anna DeCosa, encouraged me to just play around. And then there were some things in the room. I think this was cut from the final bit, but like there was a bowl of lemons or something. And it was like, oh, we'll play with those, or like just using that wild energy when you're waiting for something in a doctor's office and like, what's in here? There's a little uterus. There's a little like bowl of lemons. What can I do? Like, so I think she had me do that. But when I was going through this myself, I had taken pictures of everything. I think it also sort of helped me cope with when my father was dying and when I had gone through the IVF. I just started taking pictures of weird things I saw when I was alone in places where I couldn't handle what was happening. So I think that was a heightening of me taking pictures, like taking a selfie. I don't think I actually have a selfie. I think I just, in real life, held up the wand and took a picture like, what is this? What are we doing?
Everything, I know it's discussed too often. It's not original for me to say, but everything in the medical community, in medical practice that relates to women's health is like designed by a guy.
Totally. The stirrups are terrible. And also to even chit chat with another woman when she's putting something in your vagina, like she's putting that wand in there. It's just like, hey, how are you? Like, what is happening? Can we just acknowledge that this is intimate and scary and like all this other stuff instead of just like pretending it's not what it is? It would be, that all needs to be redesigned.
It does. I think, I don't know, feels like our culture is working, or at least we're aware that women get the short end of the stick. So maybe, I don't know. you hear all the mammogram jokes about, if that were a male body, it would not be so uncomfortable. But
yeah, definitely. We're getting there. We're getting there.
I don't know. It's a long road.
Even when I was pregnant and hoping to carry it to term and whatever, I remember hearing like, oh, the best way to give birth is like to be squatting or, like for your body to have gravity help. And I was just like, why is every woman lying on her back in a bed? Like, because
it's convenient for the doctor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Give the doctor a good view. Yeah. The squat. Yeah. The squat is anyhow. Well, wait, I was going to bring a question back to the film. So was it just a fantastic experience? Like seeing this film come together that you'd written? And what was the added? I actually did mean to ask a while ago, but I keep distracting myself with my politics about women's health. But what was it like? What was it? Had you adapted your own writing, like from the blog? Like, did you like? What was it like adapting that screenplay from a blog post?
Well, friends from Chicago. This friend Stephanie Weir, who I think I mentioned earlier. From Mad TV, she's so incredible. She had reached out to me and had said, hey, there's this production company that's starting up and it's some Chicago people. And she had read my blog and she was like, wouldn't that be a great thing? Just community, just people in this great improv community from Chicago saying like, keep going with this, giving me a nudge. So I took that one blog post and just wrote that out and edited it a couple of times and then submitted it to their they were taking submissions for what they wanted to put up for their first sort of season, I guess. And then I realized it was Dave Hill. I didn't even know Dave Hill was a part of Gumption. I just kind of blindly did it like, okay, I'll just do this as an exercise. And then I bumped into him at a grocery store and he was like, I read your short. It's so great. And I was like, what? Oh, I did that. Yeah. Okay. And then they wanted to produce it. And then my friend Anna, I had talked to about writing, we had talked about writing a season of shows, like 12 episodes of griefing, like 1 month each, like one of these things, each episode or 1 month of a life, like dealing with miscarriage and IVF and father passing and all this stuff. And she was a producer on a show I did years ago. Oh my goodness. Up All Night. I can't think of anything anymore. Up All Night, which was a great, fun experience. And she is a creative force and has since become a great, amazing director. And she was like, I want to work on this with you. And she knows me very well. And she has a very cool sense of humor. And so it was a very safe and supportive environment. The guys from Gumption were like, our mission is to have your voice be heard. So let's just make that happen, however. And I know a lot of other people would be like, put more makeup on for this. Or you look like, I wanted to look very bland and basic to make that experience look even more vulnerable. I didn't want to come in there like, I'm all hot and done going to the doctor, because going in there felt so vulnerable. So I like that they were so freeing in that way. And
you had written a contrast between your character and the doctor character.
Yes.
So if you had dolled up, some of the humor would have been.
Definitely. That really happened. That character is a combo of two nurses. The nurse who's had the pet/aunt die was one woman. And then one time I went in and they're like, your regular nurse isn't here. This woman's going to give you your ultrasound. And I was like, how do you do? And she was like, this gorgeous, super done woman whose name was Kitty. And I was like, your name is really Kitty. Like I was like, that's a porn name. I mean, she looked like she was an actress in pornography. And I was just like, okay, I don't know. Anyway, so yeah,
and it is as awkward as there can't be a more awkward procedure to have that vibe,
unless it's your ex-boyfriend or something doing it. Yeah, I mean, it is the most awkward. Yeah, it's so intimate and simultaneously just just business as usual for the person performing it. And then also these huge stakes of like, can you see whether or not my body is going to work to have a family? That's all we want right now. Like, it's just this like perfect storm.
Yeah. Yeah. And describing the shots. And, at that point she's frustrated with you. So she gives the fastest, speediest, least helpful description of how to go through this difficult procedure of injections and whatnot.
Yeah. And the technical, that happens often in medical work where people just rattle off things and you're like, I'm scared here and I can't hear because in my head it's just,
I know. I've been there. I was going to ask, so I know you kind of shared it, but so what was the process going from script to Gumption? Like, and having Gumption produce it? Like,
they said yes.
They were having an open call or a contest or a...
Yeah, they were just looking. They were looking for friends. They had a sort of jury of, oh gosh, I can't think of the right technical words. But when you have a production company, they're not like trustees, but like a board of directors. Yeah, that's what people say. And they had everyone reach out to people they knew. I guess they just didn't want to do. They wanted to have a collaborative community with people that were not necessarily only Chicago improv people, but had the same language for developing material. And so they were just taking submissions. And then I met with them for a final round. And then I was accepted. And then they asked me if there was a director I wanted to work with, and it was definitely Anna. And then we all met a couple of times and then Anna took it from there. She is definitely the filmmaker and definitely has the vision and put it together because she was previously a line producer. She's like, I know I can see this whole picture immediately and I know who can do this well and get it done. She reached out to people, our DP Mark, and like people she knew who could do it. So it was really easy. Filmmaking is easy. Does everyone say that?
Everyone. That's everyone's experience. Well, the amazing thing is the fact that Gumption, this company, Gumption Pictures, was producing it, but then turned to you and said, who do you want to direct? That's kind of wonderful and amazing. Like, I imagine every filmmaker who listens to this, because I've obviously, like, this podcast is mostly listened to, I think, by fellow filmmakers and people who are involved in the festival circuit and stuff, be like, who the hell puts up the money and then lets you keep making the decisions? Like, that's an amazing gift. And, you got someone you got to choose your director and then you got someone from your college comedy troupe. It's like an amazing, it's like kind of a wonderful story.
Yeah. And I also know with Dave and Tom and Douglas at Gumption, if I had said, I don't know any directors, they would have said, like, we know one that is right for you, not for Arnie's. And that was their mission and still is. Like, you have a unique voice. We want to tell the story your way. So we're going to have to find someone who speaks your language.
I don't know what their mission statement is, but I don't know if you knew this, the year before they had a film at Sherman Oaks Film Festival.
I remember
that also took awards called They Fall Fast, actually about two people contemplating two strangers meet in the desert to test quicksand.
Oh,
and there's actually a moment where you don't know if they're going to commit suicide together or not. Like they actually it seems that Gumption to me, with a massive sampling of two films, which means nothing, but they're drawn to deeper, more interesting stories with a really adult, not porn, but a mature point of view, there's not that many great, I don't know, but yeah, these are stories about adults going through pain.
Yeah. And it's interesting that they all came up through comedy, but I do think if you do comedy for so long, it becomes not tiresome, but you're used to things that make you laugh or make other people laugh, and it stops making you laugh. And then you want to look at, like, I think the next natural evolution is what is absurd or what is a little upsetting, or maybe, I know a lot of people who've done comedy a long time who are into horror films now, because I think they're just, it gets, especially when there's sort of a recipe for it, when you know how to turn things funny or turn the news into something funny. It's just like, okay, what else? What's making me curious?
For sure. And Lord knows, we have a 14-year-old female. So you can imagine during lockdown for COVID, how every Friday and Saturday night we watched a horror film together because she was 13 and she's like, I just want to watch horror. And I'd actually never been a horror fan. So all of a sudden I've seen 100 horror films in the last year and a half. And now I have a total appreciation. And when horror and comedy are mixed, it's like a really special cocktail.
Yeah, Get Out. Jordan Peele,
Get Out is
master of it. I can't wait to see Nope. Yeah, we just saw that. My husband and I last night were talking about that all night, about how he is the perfect Jordan I knew peripherally in Chicago as well. He came up in that same beehive of mix of people, and the combination of the two is really entertaining. It just really scratches that itch.
It does. Well, so the obvious question to ask is, so writing IV-effing and then seeing it on screen, and then of course, as we hinted at in the beginning of this chat, COVID smacked us in the face about 3 months after the festival. So IV-effing, I don't know if its festival run was affected by COVID hitting, or if you were maybe.
I don't think other festivals responded to it. I don't think I don't think other festivals.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know in your case, Gumption was submitting it, so you probably don't even know how many. What their efforts were, but
I know they submitted it to multiple festivals. But it wasn't everyone's cup of tea, and that's fine. But I'm really grateful that you responded to it, because it is a specific. It's not just the content, but the way it's told, that it's a little weird.
Yes,
it's funny comedy. It's more.
I don't know. I guess I'm biased. I just think, but everyone, not only did I like it as a programmer, but I mean, the selection jury and the awards jury, best comedy, man. What can I say?
Best taste. This festival, Sherman Oaks Festival, has the best taste. Whoops, I'm not kidding.
What can I say? Well, I will say this. I've never really studied the numbers close enough, but we do make that effort. Our jury is 50% female. Or more. So that's sort of like an unwritten rule when we're putting together the next jury is all right, sorry, I'm not adding another dude until we get back to 50%. So maybe that helps. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm sure it helps. Just content. If you can't relate, or it's just an extra barrier to appreciation, I guess. Could be.
Yeah. Nice thing. IV-effing clears the Bechdel test with flying colors. The women having a conversation, not about man. But so my next, I was going to ask. So, did seeing this film and seeing the path it took, did you are you interested in writing more, or are you just really focused on acting?
I am interested in writing more, and I wrote a pilot with Anna. We kind of looked at doing that whole 12-month griefing sort of world, and I wrote a pilot for that. So we'll see how that goes. And I just was surprised by the whole process of it. I was surprised that Gumption wanted to do it. I was surprised it got the response from your festival. And then when it won the awards, I was like, it just came sideways. It wasn't where I was focusing and trying really hard. And so maybe sometimes that's where, when you relax and just use your voice naturally, if I had been trying to write a short to get into a festival, there's no way that's what I would have written. I would have tried to do something meaningful that wasn't as honest.
Probably true. I have to admit, you have a very different perspective. You came to the festival world from a very different place than than someone who wrote 15 shorts and like, what are they going to like? What's going to be? Yeah. It's very, very different from being someone who's like, I really want to make a feature, so I'm going to make a bunch of shorts and hope to win awards and then build up my name and then try to raise money for a feature. Like you are a working actor who like wrote a blog for personal reasons and then picked one out. And, it was obviously probably a fairly visual blog post and it was a real moment, but yeah, very different than you don't have all your eggs in the, I gotta write a feature basket.
Yeah, all my eggs are in Pasadena in a IVF. No,
in a clinic, they're frozen in Pasadena. And of course, it was what's funny is there might be this is terrible humor to throw in, but there might be something to making a film about these about miscarriage and pregnancy, because every filmmaker who's done it has sat on stage this is 3. But yourself and 2 other women took the stage at the White Fire in Sherman Oaks, and first thing they said to the audience was, I have a child now.
Oh my gosh. Oh.
They're like, I wrote this film when I was having going through the horrible stuff, and it took the film so long to get done and then made. But actually, we have a 1-year-old or a 2-year-old. One woman brought her baby to the festival, so it's. I think it's funny, but yeah, 3 for 3. The 3. I mean, it's not a miscarriage film per se, but it's pregnancy ain't as easy as they make it sound.
Maybe we should put some like film school pamphlets outside the IVF clinics. Just be like, this will help.
Yeah.
Right.
You should consider making a film about this
before making a baby. And
that'll really screw up the numbers. It'll go from 3 out of 3 to, 3 out of 15 in no time. But that's good to know. And of course you and Anna are working on series ideas and stuff, because I guess you're very plugged into television.
She is especially, and we're gonna have dinner soon. She's been in Boston shooting Kevin Can F Himself, and she's been all over doing a lot of directing. So we're gonna have dinner soon and check in, and maybe I'll try and write a feature. I don't know. I've taken classes in how to do that. I don't have any notion that like I'll just on a whim write a screenplay feature, but maybe this is inspiring.
Yeah, and there's no pressure on you. I know, to their credit, a lot of really talented people they'll write a short because they're like, no one's casting me, so I'm going to write a short and cast myself. And you're not dealing with that either. I don't think so.
I mean, so far, I don't mean that didn't.
No, big thumbs up. I mean, look, I started this saying like, I'm not going to be, I don't have the recall ability to like name all the great TV shows you've been on, and AP Bio is ongoing, right? So
we got canceled, unfortunately. So our last season premiered.
My bad.
It was a real heartbreak. And then right away, the 3 teachers, we were like, well, we were really lucky to have that. And blah, blah, blah. And then a week later, we were like, I can't get up. I'm so sad. Me too. Like we have a little Marco Polo video chain. And yeah, that was crushing.
Yeah. Well, whatever. I shouldn't bitch about it, but I think it just sucked the whole Peacock thing and all this. I think it was a weird time for network television.
Yes.
If only they'd sold the show to Netflix off the bat, you'd probably be like, 12. But whatever. Not like being premiering on NBC was a bad move. I mean, my God.
That's true.
At the time, it was like, I'm sure it was, whatever. What can I say? Always Sunny was on, some deep cable channel. All of a sudden, there's a show on NBC. So
yeah,
who knew that network comedy was about to take a weird turn?
Oh. Yeah, we were.
I know, it's like the whole business has been turned upside down.
Yes, and I'm sure. Well, you had a whole festival on Zoom not this November, last one. Like everyone is improvising and adjusting, and I just think this is a pretty an exciting time. It's upsetting in some ways, but also we don't know what the future holds. So we're all trying new things and new ways to create, and it's exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, in the festival world, we are now expected to be a hybrid festival with theatrical screenings and virtual screenings.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's a huge thing to put together for someone who's performed live a lot. Yeah.
I know. And these, and it's funny, but at least it's funny because the podcast was always in person. It was mostly people who could come over, like people in New York and Europe we'd actually get on Skype because that was before Zoom became the standard.
Yeah.
But yeah, now I'm like so used to like sitting in this little room in the corner of the house, hopping on Zoom to, we had 3 festivals that were virtual. So it's like, it was Zoom nonstop.
It's so wild to have that same focus, what our computers are in our homes too, that as we have our son's 3 now, it's just like all this energy. And then we close this little thing and we're like, hello, now it's just our house again. It's not a theater. It's just amazing what's changed with Zoom. Right.
And you have a lovely Zoom area there with a nice plant and everything. It's funny how we all had to find a Zoom spot in the house.
We have natural light. The windows across the way are the best lighting and stuff. And but we do, actors all self-tape all the time. We don't have any in-person auditions anymore.
Not at all. I've a friend who's an actor. She just told us last weekend that she's moving to Chicago. We're like, for like a job. She's like, no, I just rather live there. And since everything is self-tape, I figure I can fly out if I get cast.
That's brilliant. I mean, we could live in Montana. Yeah, that's brilliant. Yeah, we're in this wild flux time. Crazy.
I know. I don't even want to think about what home prices, just, the Chicago suburbs versus the San Fernando Valley. I don't want to think.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure she's going to be happy with her new housing.
I'm sure. Chicago is such a great town.
Chicago is great. Chicago is great. One of my best friends for 40 years went to Northwestern. So when you mentioned Northwestern, and I was so lucky because the one time I visited him at Northwestern, it was springtime. So I've only been in Chicago during the spring.
Oh, that's the best because as soon as it's like 43 degrees, everyone's in like bathing suits. Like, it's summer. They're so glad that it's not 0. And yeah, the energy is so exciting.
A beautiful school, amazing neighborhood, amazing community.
Yeah. I was really lucky and still have those friends today. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, feels like it's time to wrap up. Do you want to name a social media or website or anything?
Yes, I have. I'm on Instagram. My last name is Villepique, Villepique. And I have like some stuff up there, or promote stuff that I'm doing up there. And yeah. That's a fun place to see.
Excellent. All right. And it's Jean Villepique, at Jean Villepique.
Oh yeah. Just my last name, just at Villepique.
Oh, at Villepique. Right.
None of my other family members were into Instagram. So,
I was not able to get at Howard, believe it or not.
Really?
All right. Well, now I will ramble on with what I have to mention. By the way, the first thing I should mention is out of this podcast, a TV series was born because I was talking to filmmakers, and everyone who had a feature would end up on streaming services, and all the short films, people would just throw them on YouTube and Vimeo, and like no one would see them again. So I talked to a handful of filmmakers who've been on the podcast who had shorts, and I'm like, do you want to put all the shorts together into a TV series that's an anthology? And everyone said yes. So season 5 is coming in March. It's called Discover Indie Film. So people should go to Amazon Prime Video and search for Discover Indie Film if you want to learn more about, and give it 5 stars if you're listening to this.
Yes.
Nice. Give 5 stars to a nice TV series. It's all just films handpicked from the festival circuit. IV-effing is not in the series, but it's always welcome. We'll have to talk to Gumption about that part.
Yeah, okay.
But yeah, there's 4 seasons up, 10 episodes a season. If you want to learn more about that, it's discoverindiefilm.com. And on social media, it's at DIFwins. And Jean and I talked about the Sherman Oaks Film Festival, where we were proud that IV-effing was there and won awards. You can learn about that's every November, and it's ShermanOaksFF.com, and it's at ShermanOaksFF on social media. And the Sherman Oaks Film Festival has a sister festival that's every June, and that's Film Invasion Los Angeles. And you can learn about it at FilmInvasionLA.com, and it's at FilmInvasionLA on social media. I think I named everything. Oh, like and subscribe to this podcast if you're still listening. I always forget that. It's funny. I think Jean's episode. This episode will be like probably in like number around 245, 246, and I think there's like under 20 5-star review. Like it's got 5 stars on iTunes, but like I think like not even everyone who's been on here has reviewed it, which is funny. I get it. People are busy. But anyway, thank you, Jean Villepique.
Thank you for what you do from start to finish. If you weren't putting in all this work, cultivating the festivals and hadn't selected us, we wouldn't be here and we wouldn't have a place to put work like this. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for making great work. You know, I tell everybody who says I appreciate deeply kind words about the festivals. But I always tell everyone who makes a film, long, feature or short, I'm like, without you, we're nothing. I mean, when I'm sitting there screening through, you know, when we get 800 films submitted to Sherman, we got 800 films submitted to Sherman Oaks for last year.
Wow.
And, you know, if the first 20 are bad, I start losing sleep. Like, oh my God, we're not going to get any good films this year. I'm not going to, you know, so it's really a delight to see good films.
Thank you.
And, thank you. I'll shut up so we can stop recording, and then we'll the podcast after this will be Jean answering the 4 questions, which are about favorite films and overrated and underrated and stuff. So thank you again.
Thank you so much.
And thanks everyone for listening.